Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reedy with Future Pastimes, and I'm a designer on Dune Conquest and for expansions to the classic Dune board game, both from Gale Force 9. And I'm going to be doing some videos comparing the factions in Dune Conquest, which is the streamlined, quicker version of Dune that uses the movie imagery and art direction. It is not the exact same game, so this is not a reskin of classic Dune. It is its own game, plays very differently, has a lot of similar rules, but not identical, and it has a lot of unique things that it does. So we're going to be comparing the Atreides faction from Dune Conquest with the one from classic Dune. What are their different advantages and other elements? How do they compare and contrast, and discuss the reasoning why? So in classic Dune, you've got the Atreides. They start with 10 spice. They start with 10 forces. In Arrakeen on the board, they have a free revival of 2 forces. And then they have the following advantages in basic. They have their bidding advantage. So when cards come up for bid, they get to see those cards. They have their movement advantage, which is they get to see the next spice blow card during the movement phase. They have their battle advantage, the prescience that lets them see one part of the battle plan. The weapon played, the defense played, the leader played, or the number dialed. And then in the advanced game, they have the Kwisatz Haderach, which is once they've lost 7 forces, which they can track on a little card. They unlock the Kwisatz Haderach, which is a token that will add +2 to a leader's strength in a battle, and that leader cannot be called traitor in that battle. So that's essentially what you get from classic Dune. Now, Dune Conquest is meant to be a very streamlined version of the game that you can play in under an hour. It's 2 to 4 players. It is much quicker, and that is because there is no bidding phase. You're just buying cards. So we look at the advantages for that Atreides faction. They are very simplified. It's 2 things, one of which is just that you have more leaders than the other faction. So they have 7 leaders. All the other factions have 5 leaders. And this was driven primarily by the fact that the cast of characters is much larger for the Atreides than it is for the other factions. In fact, there was some trouble trying to just fill out enough leaders for the other 3 factions. So some creative combining was done, and we'll get to that in some of the other videos. Plus, the other thing was, like, if we were going to leave out some leaders, who would we leave out? Dr. Yui? I don't think so. Would we not have Oscar Isaac as one of the leaders for House Atreides? Seems kind of weird. So we put them all in there, and that advantage, while not powerful, it means that they have more safe leaders on whole because there are more traitor cards for Atreides. So more of them will come up, but because they have so many leaders, if you're picking one of their leaders as your traitor, odds are it's not gonna happen. They can go through some others, and because again they're drawing so many, they tend to draw 1 or 2 of their own when you're drawing leaders. So they'll have some safe leaders. Going up against Harkonnen is going to be a little bit of a different story, which is fine. It's on brand, so that makes sense. So that's the other one. And then the other advantage that they have is it's their prescience, and it's the same battle advantage as in classic Dune. So they get to see one element of the battle plan. But there's a slight difference for how it is executed. So in classic Dune, it says you can see the weapon, the defense, the leader, the number dialed. There's no mention of slots. There's this whole idea of like, well, I've got something in my weapon slot is not a thing in classic Dune. So if you're playing a worthless card in your weapon slot, or rather you're playing it in lieu of playing a weapon because you are playing a defense, and Atreides says, I want to see your weapon. You don't show them the worthless card. You just say, there's no weapon. And currently, there's not going to be much of a difference. But what I will say is that in the 3rd expansion for classic Dune, there will be a couple of treachery cards that get played in place of a weapon or defense. But if you're looking to see the weapon or the defense with prescience, you don't get to see those cards because they are not weapons or defenses. Now, that is a distinct difference with Dune Conquest because there is a weapon slot and there is a defense slot on the battle wheels. And the faction sheet here specifies card played on weapon side of the battle wheel. And there are a number of cards that can be played in lieu of weapons and defenses in Dune Conquest other than the worthless cards. There are 2 worthless cards in the battle deck. And it's important to note that Dune Conquest has 2 decks of cards. It has battle cards, and you get 4 of them. Every turn, you fill up your hand to 4. You don't have to buy those. There's a separate deck of market cards, which you can buy for 2 spice each, and you can hold up to 3 of those. So you're always going to have battle cards, and sometimes you will have both a weapon and defense. You may even have 2 different types of weapons or defense, but there are a couple of worthless cards, and there are a couple of special cards. So there's a card called Endless Legions, which lets you increase your dials up to what you have in the battle. So you can start with a very low number dial, then you can see what the battle results are and say, "Ooh, you know what? I would need to actually dial a 3 in order to win that battle," and then you can dial up to 3 because you have that card in your battle plan in place of a weapon or defense. And there's a reinforcements card, which it gives you a +3 in that battle. So there's a couple of other cards. There are special cards, but they go into the slot. And if Atreides is using their prescience to see the card in your weapon slot, and you have played one of these special cards, they get to see that. So that is a difference. And it is a relatively powerful thing to have in the game. It's a good advantage. It's one of the best advantages in the game, although that's subjective. So some people might say, the Harkonnens really amped up trader advantage, which is far superior than the one in Classic Dune. Maybe one of the best advantages. The voice, always going to be considered one, although the voice in Dune Conquest, not as powerful as the voice in Classic Dune. So like I said, there are differences between the 2 editions, and we'll go into more details on those in the other videos. So yes, some people have asked, there's a second movie coming out. Will there be an expansion to Dune Conquest? Well, I can neither confirm nor deny. You know me, I'm not going to tell you. But that hasn't stopped us from designing one. So whether it will be published or not remains to be seen. But one of the things that we look at in designing an expansion is revisiting the balance of power between the factions. And historically, Atreides wins the least often in the game. They don't have an economy, and they don't start on the planet. So that's another difference in here, is that they don't start with 10 forces in Arakeen. They do start with 13 spice, so they have a little bit more, but they're going to be buying some market cards and then shipping down. They have to go after spice blows in order to continue to get spice there. They don't have any other economy built into the faction, although most of the factions in Dune Conquest do not have an economy. So the Harkonnen don't. They also don't start on the board. The Fremen do start on the board. They have a little bit of restriction in how they're bringing their forces in, which is not the same as it is in Classic Dune, but familiar in certain ways. But they don't need to spend any spice for shipping. So Fremen tend to do pretty well for the economic win. But the Imperium, because they have the income from the market cards, they do the best. So are we looking at things to pump up what Atreides can do? Absolutely. We're looking at ways to leverage what they already can do and improve upon it in a couple of different ways. So something that we're play testing and we're looking at, and hopefully one day we'll get to see published and on the shelves to really jazz up what the factions can do. So that's the comparison between the 2 factions. They both still have 2 free revival, but there's no revival limits in Dune Conquest. You can continue to pay. If you've got all of your forces in there and you have the spice, you can get them all out, but it's costly. 2 spice per force after your free revival. Yes, if you have questions about the 2 factions or anything else with Dune Conquest, let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on these. Is there stuff from Classic Dune that should be brought into the Atreides faction for Dune Conquest? Tell me your thoughts on that. That is it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.